Hello, everybody. Greetings from Miami. My name is Aman Chauhan. I'm a medical oncologist. I lead our neuroendocrine cancer program at Sylvester Comprehensive Cancer Center at University of Miami. Today, we would be discussing two very important studies for our high-grade, poorly differentiated neuroendocrine cancer patients. One of them is DAREON5, another one is DAREON7. Since they both share a lot of commonalities, we did a common slide deck uh, to avoid repetition. As you are aware, that high-grade, poorly differentiated neuroendocrine cancer is a very aggressive disease with poor treatment options and limited treatment options and limited trial options. In that context, DLL3 targeting with the help of T-cell engagers has been a very promising development in high-grade neuroendocrine cancers. In next few slides, I will go over what DLL3 T-cell engagers mean, how do they work, what is some preliminary data, and then we'll go over the trial-specific requirements and designs. All right. So DLL3 T-cell engagers. Now, the studies we are talking about today, the DAREON5 and DAREON7 is sponsored by Boehringer Ingelheim BI. But this class of agent has been developed by several other manufacturers. In fact, we had our first DLL3 BiTE approval for small cell lung cancer with a drug called tarlatamab made by Amgen. So there's a lot of optimism and enthusiasm about DLL3 targeting of by T-cell engagers. So what is it? So DLL3, delta-like ligand 3, is a Notch pathway protein, which is heavily expressed in high-grade neuroendocrine cancers. That means small cell lung cancer, large cell neuroendocrine carcinoma, extrathoracic if you have patients who have high-grade neuroendocrine cancer outside lung, be it prostate, cervix, GI tract, pancreas, you name it. They express DLL3 and this is not a trivial expression either. It is expected that small cell lung cancer, almost 80+% patients will express DLL3, and extrathoracic high-grade patients, almost 70-75% will express DLL3. So we are talking a big patient population within the high-grade cohort that would be eligible for these DLL3 targeting cell therapies. So how do we target DLL3 positive cancer cell, in this case, neuroendocrine cancers? So one of the strategies we discussed today is T-cell engagers. These are monoclonal antibodies. Think of these antibodies with two arms. You see this Y-like structure. This is a monoclonal antibody and has two arms, one in the blue, another one in the pink. One of the arm attaches to the DLL3, which, as we discussed, is present on cancer cell. And what does the other arm do? The other arm attaches to the T cells. So when we inject this drug, it goes in the blood, it floats around, it finds the cancer cell and attaches to the cancer cell with the DLL3. And the other arm catches the T cells, which are patient's own immune system. And this is how it brings the T cell or immune cell closer to cancer cells, making them active, and then your own immune system does the rest. With the help of immune inflammatory cascade, it triggers cell death, the cancer cell death. Now, does this concept work? Well, as I discussed earlier, the T-cell engagers targeting DLL3 is already FDA approved for small cell lung cancer. But today we will discuss a drug called obrixtamab, which is the DLL3 targeted bispecific T-cell engager being investigated in both DAREON5 and DAREON7. So some of the early experience for using obrixtamab in phase 1 human studies showed very promising benefit. A lot of patients, as you can see the waterfall plot here, these are patients who had progressed on several lines of therapy. And we are seeing this high-grade neuroendocrine cancer patients showing disease shrinkage with obrixtamab alone. these bars which are hanging upside down showing the degree of shrinkage. Not only shrinkage, it's the durability of response. That means if patient respond, if the tumors are being killed by these drugs, it is not a short response. The patient tends to benefit for several months. The new data suggests this benefit may go up to several months. And I personally have patients who have gone a few years with DLL3 target T cell engagers responses. So very, very promising, especially considering poorly differentiated high-grade neuroendocrine cancer, where traditional therapies lead to very short response and drugs oftentimes develop resistance very fast. Um, this is also a new drug in the sense that the side effect profile is very different from chemotherapy or targeted therapy or radiation. Being an immunotherapy, it can cause a specific side effect called CRS syndrome or cytokine release syndrome. If you remember, I said that this drug engages the T cells, activates them, and causes your own T cells, immune cells, to fight against the cancer cells. Imagine a scenario where the T cells release too much of that cytokines, which are the ingredients which help to build up that inflammation or inflammatory cascade. So body can't handle too much influx of cytokine at one go, and that can lead to cytokine release syndrome. Fortunately, majority of cytokine release syndrome is very mild. That means fever or chills, and we watch the patients for 24 hours in first couple of cycles. Majority of patients, this is short and transient, and the patient will recover from this. And also to bypass some of these side effects, we do step-in dosing. That means patient on first day gets a very tiny dose, a week later gets a little bit bigger dose, and then a week later get a bigger dose. So this way we ease into this cytokine release and get patient's body accustomed to it, and it reduces the severity of CRS syndrome. Um, so, in summary, as a class of drug, the DLL3 T cell engagers, especially obrextimab, which is being investigated in various DAREON studies, and especially DAREON5 and 7, is looking very promising. We will see more data later this year at ASCO and several other meetings. But the prelim data from the phase 1 studies done by BI using this drug in other patients looks very promising. And if the patient responds, they tend to have this durability of response, that the responses last longer as compared to chemotherapy. Well, now let's switch the gears and talk more specifically about first DAREON5 study and following that DAREON7 study. So DAREON5 at present is in a phase 2. At present, we know what dose of obrextimab, this DLL3 T cell engager, is effective and is showing us good promising signals of effectiveness. So the study is going to be open at various sites throughout the US, Europe, and certain Asian countries. And it'll be open to anybody with extrathoracic high-grade neuroendocrine carcinoma. That means high-grade, poorly differentiated neuroendocrine cancer, small cell, large cell, mix of those, or cannot ascertain it's just a poorly differentiated NEC of any organ system outside lung. That is going to be catered by DAREON5. Patient may have progressed on one or two lines of therapy, which oftentimes would entail a chemotherapy or a platinum-based chemotherapy. First couple of cycles, as I mentioned, are administered inpatient. That means patient gets admitted for 24-hour observation for these side effects, as mentioned, CRS syndromes. And the subsequent cycles are all done as outpatient. It's a very promising therapy and makes access to DLL3 targeted T cell engagers to our patient population who otherwise have very limited opportunity to try this type of drug outside clinical trial protocols. So if you know somebody who may benefit from the study, please check out Neuroendocrine Cancer Foundation website, and they would provide a link to clinicaltrials.gov identifier for this study, which will then help you find the closest site available to you where you may want to check out if you are a good candidate or not. Moving forward, we will now discuss DAREON7 study. DAREON7 is also a very similar study. However, here we are trying a combination of this TLL3 T-cell engager obrextamib in combination with standard of care platinum-based chemotherapy. We are very optimistic about looking at the early clinical efficacy from obrextamib in refractory setting that encourages us to try an effective drug in combination with chemotherapy in frontline setting. And that's the rationale for this study. We know platinum-based doublet, the carboplatin etoposide and cisplatin etoposide, are standard of care for our high-grade, poorly differentiated neuroendocrine cancer patients. However, despite their benefit and effectiveness, the benefit is short lasting. Majority of patients would eventually progress at 4 months or 6 months or 8 months more. So hope is by adding obrextamib to frontline platinum-based doublet will extend that benefit and durability or longevity of that response. Again, the study follows a very similar pattern to the previous study we discussed, where the first couple of cycles are done inpatient, where we monitor patient for CRS syndrome for 24 hours after the infusion, and the subsequent cycles are all outpatient, and it gets relatively much easier logistically for patients to participate as well. Patients get chemotherapy with platinum doublet from 4 to 6 rounds along with obrextamib, and then later they will just continue on the maintenance of obrextamib after the chemo immunotherapy upfront phase. Again, please check out the clinicaltrials.gov link along with this video on the Neuroendocrine Cancer Foundation website to look for the closest sites closest to you, where you may want to get yourself evaluated whether you are a candidate for this important study. With that, I'd like to wrap up. Thank you so much for your attention, and till we meet again, have a great day.